Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, events, and issues surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. With me, as always, is Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. I say this every time that there's a lot to talk about, but this week, more so than usual, I'm going to give at the top of the show a very quick rundown of just some of the things we're going to be talking about on this program. We have Sasha Banks possibly coming to New Japan Pro, not possibly coming, she's coming. We don't know what she's going to be called, but there it is. Karl Anderson, a contracted WWE wrestler appearing at Wrestle Kingdom. Shingo Takagi, an announcement from Minoru Suzuki. The Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame has Japanese connections, of course, going in this year. We're going to talk about that. We have the World Tag League and Super Junior Tag Leagues all wrapping up, going into their final night tomorrow. We're going to preview that show, talk about how we got here, and some surprises in that respect, too, as far as who we're seeing in the finals, for us anyway. And Jeremy, it seemed like every time I turned on the internet, looked at my phone, there was something else going on with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I guess that's to be expected. Wrestle Kingdom is coming, and big plans are in the offing.
Honestly, it felt like a slow news day until you pointed this all out. A little overwhelmed, but all roads were about Sasha Banks. Every conversation, I felt like all this happened, and you reminded me of all of this stuff. But because of Sasha Banks, it all just went completely out the window of my cognizance. So we got stuff to talk about today. I got a Coke Zero. I got some caffeine. I got tapes. I got the dog settled in on the side. We're ready to go, man.
I've got my venti coffee going over here too, so I'm ready to roll. But this is a big deal because I was thinking about this, Jeremy. With Sasha Banks, we don't know what she's going to be called. Is she going to be called Mercedes? Her real name's Mercedes Varnado, of course. Sasha Banks, is she going to be Sasha? Is she going to be Mercedes? Is all this? And the key is, though, this is, I'm going over my head, the biggest free agent in the entire industry right now. She's coming to New Japan. Male, female, anything. I can't think of anyone who is a bigger non-contracted talent right now. And here she comes, and so let's go over this again. She has apparently agreed to a few appearances with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yes.
Not specifically Stardom so much. It sounds more like it's New Japan. Now,
Bari was the one that was driving this, from the understanding that we have gotten between Joe Lanza's excellent reporting from Voices of Wrestling and follow-up work by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter reporting this. Yeah.
So we're looking at a possible appearance at Wrestle Kingdom, and they've actually been very careful about how they have phrased that. She's going to be in Tokyo for Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th.
Yes.
They've been careful not to promise that she's going to be on camera. And part of that might be because she's not a free agent yet. There are all kinds of things. There's a lot of murkiness surrounding her WWE contract. Is she a free agent now? Will she be a free agent by January 4th? This appearance is not booked through WWE. That we have gotten from multiple sources, which makes me think she's going to be a free agent, or she is one. And perhaps they're just being very careful about not promising too much. The tea leaves would suggest that we're going to get an outstanding IWGP Women's Championship match between Tam Nakano challenging Kairi for that title. First title
100%.
defense. It's going to be great. What could make it even better is if Mercedes comes out and challenges the winner for perhaps Yokohama, perhaps another show down the road, because, of course, Wrestle Kingdom is a 2-night event. They just aren't consecutive. It's not January 4th and 5th at the Tokyo Dome. It's January 4th and then the 21st in Yokohama. But that's a big show, too, and they have to have something big for it. It's as big as it gets. This is the biggest free agent in wrestling. And how are you feeling about this? Were you surprised? Because there have been some hints from her that she would be interested in this. But I think a lot of people thought they were just negotiating tactics. But it looks like it's happening.
So I was trying to figure out how I felt about this, and I was going to go with some poetry that I ran into that really kind of explained the context about how this all worked out. And just follow with me here, because if I sang it, I'd probably get into trouble. But here it goes. Had a dream. I hadn't made it. There's nothing dragging down me now, because a girl going to push it all out the way. Destined to break in. I found my way, yeah. Now ain't nobody gonna take it because the girl gonna push them all out the way.
I believe that was Keats, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is CFO, I believe.
CFOs.
I've had visions of sitting high on my own gold throne, never listening to criticism. I built my own. From the bottom, I've gotten myself in my own zone, never stopping. I made it, and now I ain't going home. Those are some words right there from the boss, Sasha Banks. That's her theme song, and it just, when you think about it, and you think about statements that she's made in the past where she admires Vince McMahon for what he's built for himself, and she says she doesn't want the pizza, she doesn't want the hamburgers and fries that's served to her, she wants the steak. She wants to be the one in charge. So she is making decisions that, to me, make complete sense because her ceiling was capped in WWE. She was always treated as the stepping stone to the main event at Mania in a lot of ways. She never got her main event face win at Mania, which a lot of people did. Her big one was a tag team championship match that she won, but she was the heel putting over Bianca Belair, and that was her big stepping stone for Mania. Now, she never went back to WWE after all this. She's gone the Cody route. She's upped her own stock outside the game. She's doing everything she can to say, like, you missed out on me. Now you're going to have to pay more and put me in a better position because I'm all that and more. And you know what? Holy shit, she is. She's so good. Like, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Varnado is one of the greatest wrestlers of the generation. And it would underserve her in a lot of ways to be putting her on Mania matches with the legacy wrestlers that they'd have out there for, the once in a lifetime matches, Beth Phoenix, that kind of stuff. That's not like, that's putting her out. That's putting her in a position that really underserves her. She's in the prime and she needs to be competing at the top level with competition that she's going to find in Stardom. And if IWGP and Obari and New Japan are going to make it happen so that she can, get paid and wrestle top caliber talent around the world, like, okay, great. I love it. Let's do this. I believe 100% that she is going to blow everyone away. Like, she's not got in her DNA to do anything less than that. The idea to me is that she probably had an end of her contract at the calendar year, like on the 31st. She can't do the booking. She can't do all that. But the word of mouth got out because it always does. And then when we get closer to all this, and perhaps because it's the 4th, the floodgates are going to open and all the information about what's going on with her is just going to go right out the door. Wrestle Kingdom as her wrestling debut party of the new iteration of whatever she is and whatever she's going to be. Perfect. There's no other place for it to do it. If she went to AEW and did the same thing, I'm sorry, it would not have the same impact because she's doing what everybody else did.
Well, she would walk in the door at AEW and immediately be the most talented woman in the locker room. I mean, she and Toni Storm would be the number 1 and number 2, and Jamie Hayter is coming up and on the way, I think. But nobody else in the AEW locker room plays on her level. And really the only people that do are the other top talent in WWE and the very top talent in Stardom. They can play at that level. And certainly Kyrie plays at that level. Tam Nakano does. Iwatani does. Julia, Sherry. And those aren't the only ones. Those are just the ones that just fell out of my head right there.
Sure.
And this is an opportunity to do something. Now, her favorite wrestler of all time, the person that inspired her to be a wrestler, was not the Fabulous Moolah. I don't care what kind of bullshit WWE tries to tell you. Her hero is Eddie Guerrero. Like, she wasn't dreaming of doing hair mares and doing rolling around on the referee spots like Moolah did for 40 years. She wanted to be Eddie Guerrero. That was her hero. Well, Eddie Guerrero was a second Black Tiger. He made as much of his name internationally in New Japan as anywhere else. And of course, he had that huge WWE run where he was fantastic and he was great in WCW. Eddie was great everywhere, right? But one of the things that really put Eddie on the map, we all knew he was good, but when he was the second Black Tiger and he had those matches with Jushin Liger that are blow-away matches, there is that New Japan connection with Eddie Guerrero, certainly. And I think that Mercedes, who is a student of the game and clearly is a wrestling fan, understands the idea of a big main event Japanese run and what it could do for her legacy within the wrestling business. And of course, one of the best ways to get the WWE to appreciate and pay you is to leave and be a star for somewhere else, because nothing else seems to work, because they will screw up, crap on, and abuse everybody that comes up through that system. As soon as you leave and become a star somewhere else, all of a sudden red carpets are rolled out for you. And I agree with you. I think she saw what happened with Cody, and not that it was a Cody playbook. I don't think Cody intended to do it this way, but she saw what it was like when you come back, and it's a good thing. I think she will be back in WWE and probably get paid. According to them, they're far apart on money, but hopefully that gets resolved someday. In the meantime, Jeremy, I am totally on board with seeing a run of Mercedes wrestling these top Japanese women, because I think we could be in for some really special matches out of it. She's got the talent, absolutely, to go in there and put on some fantastic stuff with fresh opponents in exciting settings. I'm really excited about this idea of her making several appearances. We also talked about how Kairi won that tournament because we felt, their theory was, because she had a name in the United States, that she could bring credibility to the IWGP Women's title, which we've mentioned is supposed to be defended on major New Japan shows and also in the US, because it's culturally a little strange not to have women on the show. Well, if you want credibility for a title, that problem could be solved in an instant here, couldn't it?
Yes, you could 100% make that match. Yes. I hadn't even thought about it. My mind had gone in this different direction about something that made me wonder. And I was sorry, I'm gonna ask you this. Would you put the capital of Mercedes Varnado versus Kairi Sane at a San Jose show, or would you leave it for in actual Japan?
No, that's a huge match. I would actually absolutely have it in Japan. I mean, this is the kind of thing that might even bring a few eyeballs onto NJPWworld.com, and she probably not make an enormous difference, but I bet she moves the needle a little bit. And I would not have this thing in San Jose. This would be a monster show. I mean, Forbidden Door, perhaps, if it all kind of works out like that. Forbidden Door 2, something like that.
There's the second Wrestle Kingdom. As soon as that was in the picture, there's a lot of these things that
Dominion.
That kind of. Do you think? Okay, I'm going to give you an over/under of her 6 months wrestling Japanese matches like this. Do you take the over or the under?
Oh, yeah. Why did it have to be 6 months? I definitely think she gets to Dominion. I feel like if the word they're using is several, and we don't have a number, several appearances, right?
Yeah.
We're figuring Yokohama is one of them. We're figuring probably something else in the springtime in there. And then, boy, I just feel like you got to build to a big match at Dominion. That would be on the bucket list, wouldn't it? Wrestle Kingdom, Dominion, that type of thing. So I'll put it slightly over. So that might be the last one.
If you blew it off at Dominion and then WWE paid the money to bring her back by SummerSlam, I think that timeline kind of works really, really well for everybody involved. And I think everybody would have a great time. And hopefully nobody would lose their mind when Sasha decides to stop having her wrestling Rumspringa and go get paid and be top level in the company with the biggest eyeballs. So everyone's going to benefit from this in the short term.
I would hope so. And certainly we are, as fans, seeing her with some of these Stardom wrestlers who are having wonderful matches on their own. And goodness knows she can provide a lot more of that. So definitely looking forward to it. We'll see what her appearance is. Again, I'm predicting that she's just going to come out and make an appearance, not wrestle at Wrestle Kingdom, but challenge the winner of that match for Yokohama. That's just my prediction. I got no inside info, but I'm reading the tea leaves of the way New Japan does things, and
I think this is all social media. You wake up the next morning and everyone sees the clips of her in Japan and like, oh, what's going to happen next? That's the thing. That's the deal.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now we're going into this because it's another fascinating thing is going on that does involve WWE, but in a different way here, Jeremy. Karl Anderson, we've mentioned before, our long national nightmare is over. He's going to come back to Japan and defend the never open weight title, as I mentioned with Scott Edwards a few weeks ago. Hunger strikes around the world finally coming to an end, and people are starting to see their families and re-enter society now that the title is going to be properly defended. My goodness, it's just been a saga. Then there was a twist to the tale, wasn't there? We all figured that if he came back, it would be to drop the belt because Karl Anderson has a great relationship with New Japan, has had, and probably part of his deal with WWE is like, look, I've got this belt. I would like to show the respect to the company that helped me out a lot by going back and dropping it. We figured that was it, right? Turns out that's not it. They have come to some kind of agreement, and as opposed to the Sasha Banks thing, this is booked through WWE for Karl Anderson to appear not only tomorrow in his title match against Hikuleo, but to also wrestle at Wrestle Kingdom. Jeremy, I think this is a much bigger surprise that they're letting him go back again on January 4th. That means we're going to have AEW talent, WWE talent, and New Japan and Stardom talent all on this show on January 4th.
Potentially Impact.
Potentially. And what's your thought on that? I am honestly very surprised that they allowed this to happen, for Karl to go back again, and it certainly puts tomorrow's result up for grabs. Does he lose the never open weight title?
I think it gave away tomorrow's result. Actually,
I think it did too. But still, I did not expect WWE to be okay with this.
I think it's a new regime, and there's definitely like some hard assery in mentality and approach that has definitely, the glacier has iced a little bit. There's definitely a little
bit, or
melted. Sorry,
it might ice. So it could ice over at any moment.
It could ice over too. It could get even harder. It could turn into an even harder show. You never know.
Oh, certainly.
Kind of scenario. I think it's news rather than noise, but very little bit of news rather than the noise. Like, this is testing the water of cooperation to see if maybe something bigger can be done later on. And, my instinct is you're going to get burned eventually. Like, you'll eventually get burned. And that's...
The cynic in me is that we have gone from a out-of-touch kind of clown that Vince McMahon became at the end of his run there to the most political animal that maybe has run down the pike in a good long time in Paul Levesque. The cynic in me says that Paul is doing this partially to perhaps drive a little bit of a wedge between New Japan and AEW, just to see if he can kind of cause a little bit of havoc in there and see if he can maybe dig in a little bit and maybe try to split that off a little bit. That's the cynic in me. Maybe I just don't necessarily buy this thing that we're in this whole new era with WWE of cooperation and everybody's holding hands, singing Kumbaya and doing joint shows. It's still friggin' WWE to me. I just don't see it happening full time. But I could see Paul doing something to kind of weasel his way in there and try to get in. He's one of the most political human beings that's ever. I mean, look how he got where he got. There you go. So, perhaps it's that. Either way, we get Karl Anderson.
He's a smart and canny dude, and he understands that there's an opening here that he can maybe exploit for his own benefit, and more power to him. And Wrestle Kingdom will be a better show by having all this talent on there. If Obari really, really, really wants to do this and go big and bring all this outside talent in and make this truly the kingdom of kingdoms of wrestling shows to be on with all this top level talent of all these things, and then you have Karl Anderson, cool, fine. That's cool with me.
They know the name Wrestle Kingdom 17 years ago. Wrestle Kingdom, January 4th has always been the day of the big show. That goes back to way back. But the concept of Wrestle Kingdom at the very beginning, the reason they called it that, and it was when things weren't going very well for New Japan at all. And part of it was they brought in people from other companies for this big show. Wrestle Kingdom, meaning having an idea of
the return to tradition.
Something beyond just New Japan.
Right.
Back, the NWA champion has appeared on this show, and I don't mean like the Dory Funk Juniors and the Harley Races, but some of the later ones that maybe didn't mean as much. No disrespect to that, there were some fine wrestlers, but the NWA title wouldn't have had a bet. They also had
the prestige of their talent was there.
But there have been GHC matches. There have been Triple Crown matches at Wrestle Kingdom over the years. And so the idea, Wrestle Kingdom was born in the idea of cooperating with other companies in order to put this show on. So in a way, we're kind of coming around a little full circle, perhaps.
So I'm glad we have Omega, and I'm glad we have Mercedes Varnado, and then we have Karl Anderson. So that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Well, I mean, he's not as big a deal as the other two, clearly. I mean, but still, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. You got a WWE guy in here.
I don't really get why the never open weight title has been given such a back burner since Jay White lost it.
Mm-hmm.
It just it's been a hot potato title, and then it ended up on Karl Anderson, and this timing all happened, and then they just kind of got cute with it. Like, this all just feels cute. You know, like, it doesn't feel like consequential. It's not going to be a great footnote in anyone's timeline of things that happened that were amazing in 2022 or in the whole decade or anything like that. It's just a thing that happened. And for me, I want it to be done because there is so much talent that's actually in New Japan that you could put this belt on and then create a lineage that they're not doing right now because they're valuing this weird gimmick / like carny thing that they're doing with WWE and trying to fool the fans into some like meta thing. And I'm just not into it. Like, I hope some people are fooled. I hope someone out there really enjoying it because I'm not. And that's the best I can put.
I'll be glad when there's some clarity to it, for sure.
Yeah.
And if this does give away the finish tomorrow because he's coming to Wrestle Kingdom, that he's not going to lose the never open weight title to Hikuleo, New Japan might know that it's a little too obvious, by the way, and always might twist the knife a little bit there and come up with something different. There's been a rock in my shoe, a burr in my saddle, so to speak, for a while, that if Naito and Sonata don't win this tag team tournament, and they didn't, they're not in the finals, what do you do with them? Is this the opening to get someone from LIJ in a never open weight title match? I can't wrap my head around the idea, and I know they have some major matches already planned, but the idea of trying to sell tickets in a dome stadium without Tetsuya Naito and one of their biggest draws in the entire company in a major match just blows my mind. I just feel like they're going to try to get him in there somewhere.
Do you think Naito might white knight the title back for New Japan?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it would get him into it.
There are weirder things. Like, to me, I was like, do you put Naito, Sonata, and pick a guy against Evil and you know what I mean? Like, for the trios, and I'm like, that's flat. So if you wanted to do the okie doke and then somehow pivot to Karl Anderson versus Naito at Wrestle Kingdom, my eyebrow would be raised.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, my eyebrow would be like, okay, maybe we can just have like a 2-minute Naito match where he just pulls one over on Karl Anderson. But now that he's with WWE, like, he's not gonna get joked. You know what I mean? Like, we have to get something out of this. So,
and Karl is a good wrestler. Karl is very capable of having a really good match with a really good wrestler. And it's his
antics outside that completely turned me off to him in general. I just
he's working an angle, though. I mean, the whole thing was a work. I mean, he was always going to come back. But he has known what's going to happen long before we ever did. So he's being a heel. You know,
I get it. I've been kind of one of those, really, Karl Anderson, all this over Karl Anderson. Like, that's my instinct to it. And I feel bad. Like, he's good. He's a good wrestler. He doesn't do much for me. He's always like the Starscream to the Megatron, or you know what I mean? Like, he's always just like the second level bad guy. He's the second in command. He's the second in command of the bad guy.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so he's like the guy that's just below the other guy, and like there's a limit to him, and he's only as dangerous as that. He's never going to be more dangerous than Jay White. He's never going to be more dangerous than AJ Styles. All these kind of things. And so when I say, really, we're going through all this trouble for Karl Anderson, he's not even the top guy in his own stable, and yet we're going through all this work for him. That's the part of me that's just like, I feel like we could have allocated the resources for this title and how they went about it. But at the same time, they didn't have, like, I've watched all the World Tag League. I've watched all the Super Junior Tag League. There was no time for anything else. There was no time for, like, singles titles or defending this anywhere. It wasn't going to get defended on a New Japan Strong. That wasn't going to happen either. So
New Japan's been weird. New Japan's been weird about their titles anyway this year. They put the tag team titles a month ago on a team that's not even in the company and virtually never comes, and they totally iced that in a way that they didn't have to. And so it's been a strange year for belts. And then they're creating more of them. You don't even use the ones you have. Again, play with the toys you have. Don't until you get some new ones.
So I'm kind of in this fugue state. I just want it to be over because again, I believe that there's other talent that title should be used to elevate and create feuds and to make that feuds more valuable. Because I'm looking at the slate of all the talent that has been wrestling lately, people that are going to have stuff that needs to like play out. And it's a great title to have out there. The devaluing of it has been completely of New Japan's own design. I wish they would not do that anymore. But of the few criticisms I have about New Japan, that's probably one of my biggest ones.
And speaking of people who are a little bit underutilized right now in New Japan, you have Shingo Takagi. Now, he was in a not particularly great feud with El Phantasmo where their strengths were hidden and their weaknesses emphasized. He's been doing some things with Taichi, and I guess we're going to get some more of that soon, but he surprised everyone when he made an appearance at Korakuen Hall for Dragon's Gate, his old home promotion. Now, when I say old home promotion, he was there for like 16, 17 years. He was like from 2004 until he came to New Japan. So he was there a long time. And he is going back for at least one night for a big show that they do on Christmas. And that's going to be in Fukuoka. And he's in a tag team match. But again, this whole spirit of cooperation, Jeremy, everybody's just going to be soon. Next thing you know, we're going to have some sort of little meeting up in some vacation home where everybody's just going to get together and drink together. All these different promoters. That's the next thing. It's just been this spirit of cooperation seems to be taking over. Shingo Takagi has been allowed to go and work for Dragon's Gate at Christmas. And we don't know if there's going to be more of these appearances or if this is just a one-off, but he is teaming with, and I'm probably going to mess up this name, BXB Hulk. Now, there's probably somebody from Dragon's Gate that's yelling at me right now. I apologize in advance if I'm botching that guy's name. Against Yamato and Madoka Kikuta. That's going to be a big match on their Christmas show. So Shingo Takagi coming. He did get a big reaction, Jeremy, when he came out of that Dragon's Gate show at Korakuen. It was real kind of like, holy crap, he's back, he's here, and when his music hit, everybody went crazy. It was kind of a cool moment. What do you make of this? Just a one-off, or is something going on here?
I feel like it's a one-off for now. I mean, he made it clear he's single and he's 40 and it's Christmas. He didn't have any plans. Killed me dead when he made that his statement in the article. No, I think it's just one of those, like, I think there's a real cooperative spirit among all the promotions right now that they want to jumpstart getting the businesses going, the cheering crowds, all the work done, and companies are asking, and they're leaving it up to the wrestlers, it feels like, if they're okay with it. And she goes like, hell yeah, let's do it. I got nothing going on. I love to wrestle.
Now, do you know the big tradition for people in Japan on Christmas Day?
I don't.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Hell yeah.
KFC. I'm not joking about that. Like,
I don't think you are.
It is a very big deal to get a big, well, I guess they don't do buckets so much anymore. A big bucket of KFC, and you hang out with your friends, and it's more of a party. I think of the holidays there, like New Year's and Christmas are a bit flipped in how they're celebrated. So Christmas in the United States, you mostly think of spending time with your family. It's quiet. All the businesses are closed. You're hanging out with folks, maybe watching some NBA if you're me. And, that's the kind of family gathering, reflecting on the year, spending time with your loved ones. And then New Year's, you're out with your friends and you're kind of partying a little, right?
Okay. Yeah.
In Japan, because there isn't the religious connotation to Christmas, but they love the idea of gift giving. That gift giving in Japan is going to get over every time.
Sure.
So hanging out with your friends on Christmas, exchanging some gifts, and you get carry-out fried chicken. I don't know how that got to be the thing, but it is. The lines are absolutely around the block at all KFCs on Christmas. And you hang out with your friends. New Year's, everything's closed. That's the day that you're in with your family and you're reflecting along the year and visiting.
That's a solemn holiday.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Right. Shingo.
I feel like I knew that, but I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like it was in the back of my head somewhere.
And I think this may be Shingo just avoiding all the carbs that come with all the KFC meals, and he's going to go get a workout in that day and do a match for his old company. Maybe that's the whole point.
Or he's just getting KFC on the house from the promotion.
Could be an angle. When you're a single guy, you got to do what you got to do.
A free meal is a free meal. Save your money, kids. Like what does Alvarez say? Like, don't spend your paycheck.
Don't spend your paycheck. And hey, if anybody could use a free meal, it's a professional wrestler sport.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
They got a commissary table. He's not going to be high on the card. So you can eat the meal, hang out, and watch some good wrestling. I mean, I think the dude's got it figured out.
Maybe he does. That's the thing. So good luck to him. I hope he has fun. I hope the fans enjoy it. It's a cool thing. He was their number one guy for a very long time. So it's kind of neat. He's going back.
Yeah, I'm into this. I'm into this cooperative spirit among all the promotions.
It's neat.
I feel like we're at a point where like everything's kind of simmering on a low level, so that when they escalate it actually means something. Sometimes when they just do these like one and done shows and they don't heat it up in any way, it doesn't feel like you can get the most most bang for your buck on payoff.
Yeah, and it's just a pleasant thing to think that these things can happen and that they might actually work together on some stuff. And hopefully it's all successful and we see more of it, because I've been making fun of WWE and their more predatory business practices toward other promotions. And I'm not sold that that's going away. I would love to be wrong about that. I would love if Paul Levesque really were. I think he is a wrestling fan. I do think Paul Levesque is a wrestling fan. If part of him is just like, I wish I had been able to do that back when I was the top guy. Yeah, like maybe I wish I could have done something like that. Wouldn't it have been cool to have those guys come over for Mania? Like maybe that's in his head. I would love to think it's true. It's the holidays. I'll give Paul the benefit of the doubt on that. How about that?
There's definitely stuff going on with the Regal thing that can make you seem like there are two sides to every coin. There are two sides.
Indeed. So now we have another thing that could affect the future of New Japan, and this is very vague. We talk about reading tea leaves on this show. Minoru Suzuki. Now, he had a interesting Instagram post a few days ago, and I could be reading too much into this. I'll admit this. We talked of how it's not just that he's losing, it's the way he's losing that just makes it seem like perhaps the signal is Minoru Suzuki is working his way down the cards, and he's not even going to be that guy that has that special singles match once in a while. He could be the guy that's losing the falls. And I said something kind of harsh that he was going to be the Tomoaki Honma of Suzuki-Gun, and I didn't mean that as far as working style. Honma was almost paralyzed from the neck down. The fact that he's in the ring and doing what he's doing is fantastic. Everybody loves Honma. I'm not knocking Honma. But Suzuki was clearly at a very much higher level than Tomoaki Honma. But Honma's the guy that protects everybody else by doing the job. Chase Owens for Bullet Club. Doki for Suzuki-Gun. Until recently, now it seems like Suzuki's doing all the jobs. Here is what he posted not too long ago. It's just a picture of him with the towel over his head, that iconic kind of shot of him. And it says, and this is translated Japanese into English through computer, is always a little tricky. The future has been on my mind for a few years. Suzuki Army started in 2011 with Taichi, Takamichinoku, and Lance Archer. My friends are growing and growing. Sometimes we've taken rides to other organizations. We've been at the center of pro wrestling for 10 years. At this time, I've made a decision for a further future, revealing all 12-14 in Sendai. So we mentioned that Zack Sabre Jr. has been the number one single in Suzuki-Gun for a while.
Yes.
This seems to me like there might be something of a, if not retirement, maybe a step back for Suzuki. I mean, we're going to end up with Sabre-Goon here. I mean, this feels like after saying we have been a force for 10 years, now I'm thinking about the future. That doesn't sound like this is going to be the biggest year for Suzuki-Gun ever in 2023. This sounds like perhaps taking a step back or away, doesn't it?
I think you're reading too much into it, personally. Okay, so here's my reasons why I feel like it's more noise than news.
Okay.
You've already got Zack Sabre Jr. in a feud with Ren Narita. It has nothing to do with any of this. So that's the key thing for me, is like he's off doing his own thing, and it's a much more high profile feud than anything that they've got going on. You've also got Suzuki losing a humiliating way to the House of Torture in the end of the tag league. You've also got Suzuki-Gun versus House of Torture on the 14th at the World Tag League Finals. And I kind of think his announcement is that he's challenging for the trios title or the six-man titles against House of Torture. I feel like that's it. There's nothing else to it. Like, I feel like this is a noise announcement to get you interested in like a fizzled balloon. Like, that personally, like, I don't feel like he would do that. I don't know. Like, this isn't how Suzuki would do it. Like, he would just go out and he would just announce it. If he was like whatever his next thing is, he would just do it after his match and then tell people. Like, I'll say
this: his Instagram can be a little more sentimental than his on-camera persona in wrestling matches sometimes. And I just think that if he were going to do that, wouldn't the posts be more about "I always get my revenge" or something like that, instead of "all my friends are growing. We've gone through all these changes. We've gone through these other organizations. We've been doing it for 10 years. Now I'm going to challenge for the six-man titles for a title that's not a big deal." I don't see it.
If he said, "Okay, I'm going to retire next year at Wrestle Kingdom, but first, like, I'm going to go for some gold, and these guys show me, and like, I'm going to go with my friends, and I'm going to go after these titles." So if he got Lance Archer and Taichi, and they challenge House of Torture at Wrestle Kingdom, so he got whatever, and then he goes on a retirement tour for a year, like the way Muta has been doing, or anything like that, would that feel like that hit all the buttons? Because I feel like they're just getting to the six-man title like setup for me personally. And
the headline on that would be the retirement tour, wouldn't it? I mean, one of the greatest of all time is retiring.
But I don't know. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't feel like this is that big of. I think he's like a hook line and like got him rather than like a real significant like teaser for a real significant announcement. If I'm wrong, and I probably am, because you feel very strongly about this, and I didn't think that much into it, in all honesty. So I'm tempering my expectations about what this announcement is. When I was watching the matches, I wasn't thinking about like the future of Suzuki-Gun. I wasn't thinking about. I was thinking about like what's going to happen with Suzuki at Wrestle Kingdom, because they feel like they've been doing something with him, giving him like a losing streak. He like took the worst destino I've ever seen in the recent history in that one match with in the tag match. So there's just this thing where it's just like maybe they've got a losing streak and he's going to get with his buddies and they're going to win some titles. And
I got to disagree with you. I feel like there is a sea change as far as their approach to Minoru Suzuki. Like, he was always heavily protected, and then when he had those big matches, they were either main event or semi-main event, and they were hard hitting. And the way that he's been booked, and now this announcement, it just feels different to me. Like, nothing the way he was booked in that tournament. They protected Lance Archer.
They did.
Not him. They protected Lance Archer, not him. And Lance Archer isn't around that much.
But he's a contracted talent to another promotion. Suzuki is more of a free agent.
Yeah, but I mean, there's ways you can protect a guy, countouts, which they've done. They've done flash pins with Lance Archer before, where he gets rolled up and it's 1, 2, 3. What the hell? He's done that before. And I'm not even complaining so much about Suzuki losing. It's the way he was losing. Like, he was just being beaten decisively by guys that would never have been Minoru Suzuki 3 years ago.
Has Suzuki had a prominent Wrestle Kingdom match since the one he got his head shaved at?
Oh, I'd have to look that up. I feel like he's had some singles matches that were interesting. Was one of the Moxley matches at Kingdom?
I don't remember.
I might be thinking of a different pay-per-view.
But when we talk about that was almost 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like that match where he had what I remember is his last prominent Wrestle Kingdom match was like 4 or 5 years ago. And so this progression down the card has been quiet but substantial for some time.
And again, that's why that Instagram post stood out to me, because if this was just kind of the slow trajectory for him, there's no need to write this whole thing that I'm making a big announcement on the 14th. We'll say I could be totally wrong, that we could be going next week. Well, that was a big nothing.
There's this aspect of it that I watch him wrestle in the US, and it's just like, it's nothing to him. Like, he's just coming out here, and it's just like a day at the races. Mm-hmm. He comes in, he does his thing. Like, he can do this for a while. So I don't see why he would do like a hanging up. But if it's like move out of the stable, that kind of thing, sure, that's entirely possible. But the Sabre part of it, I have removed the equation because he's got the Ren Narita thing. And I feel like that's going to be going in Ren Narita's favor, but you know what I mean? So I don't really want to highlight Zack Sabre Jr. if he's about to lose a title match. So
also, on the other side of the Sabre Goon thing, I'm going to poke a hole in my own argument on that one, is that he's not even on this show tomorrow. Zach isn't. So if you're going to just say it's now, I'm going to turn the reins over to Sabre Goon, you would have him there to do so, So it could be just as simple as, we've had our 10-year run and now we're going to go our own ways. And I'm still the meanest son of a gun in the world, but I'm going to do it on my own. And I think my guys have grown up enough that they can do it on their own too. And then they kind of filter out.
Do you think that he would create a tournament among his own guys to fight to be the leader?
Oh, jeez. I don't know. Who knows? That sounds like something you would do. That's a very
Taichi
Blackpool Combat Club.
Zack Sabre versus, I don't know. I get it. You know what I mean? And it's like, go for it.
We'll see what happens. So anyway, that's what Suzuki's thing is, and that could be Steven just reading too much into things.
I think it's more noise than news. You think it's much more news than noise, and we shall see how that plays out next week.
Speaking of news versus noise, the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame came out this past week, and there was some news in it for Japanese fans, I would say. Jeremy, it's been an interesting turn of events here. We have added tag teams now. So before it was just wrestlers individually, and some really key tag teams didn't get in because one guy was a bigger star than another and things. And that's something that's kind of tormented Dave a little bit over the years, because it does feel like there were some tag teams where one guy isn't necessarily a Hall of Fame wrestler, but the tag team is a Hall of Fame draw, right? And that's the difference between art and science. And pro wrestling is an art. It's not you can't just put the stats out there like with baseball or football. And even that has arguments. I'm not trying to say it doesn't. So with the tag team thing, he made tag teams now part of it, and it has affected the ballot quite a bit. A Japanese tag team did get in, was the biggest vote getter, and then two New Japan wrestlers and another person that had a long run in New Japan and is heavily influential within New Japan. So there are a lot of connective tissue, so to speak, with it. Mm-hmm. Akira Taue and Toshiaki Kawada, whose name translated into English as the Holy Demon Army, pretty cool, got in with 76% of the vote. Taue and Kawada, of course, not New Japan wrestlers. They are classic Kings Road, Four Pillars, All Japan into Noah guys, and still truly one of the great tag teams, absolutely deserving of being there. Kota Ibushi got in with one more vote than Tetsuya Naito, but both in clearly that they were not particularly close on the vote, both getting over 65%. You only need 60 to get in. So we have Taue and Kawada, Kota Ibushi, Tetsuya Naito, and then Rollerball Mark Rocco.
Mm-hmm.
Not a Japanese name, certainly, but he was the very first Black Tiger. The guy that opposed the original Tiger Mask. The man who wrestled George Takano, the Cobra, on at Madison Square Garden and blew everybody away to the point that they put it on the very first Best of the WWF Volume 1 VHS tape. And it was considered like one of the great Madison Square Garden matches. So you have somebody that was the foe of the original Tiger Mask. So it was Mark Rocco as the Black Tiger and Dynamite Kid, really, who made that character. There were others, certainly others, really talented guys, but those were his key rivals, the original Tiger Mask that popularized junior heavyweight wrestling. It is not an exaggeration to say that there are a lot of people. Daniel Bryan is one of them, certainly, I think, that might have had a much tougher road getting into the wrestling business if those guys had not succeeded to the level that they did. And so he's a key member. Tetsuya Naito, I don't think that one was a tough call.
No.
He just seems, he's the Hall of Famer. My goodness, he's one of the biggest draws in this generation in Japanese wrestling. Kota Ibushi, an interesting one. And I don't disagree at all. I'm fine with him getting in.
Sure,
I'm a little surprised he got in that quickly. You know, like if he hadn't gotten in, I would have sat there and said, yeah, maybe in another year or two, but went straight in. I think he's a Hall of Famer. He certainly is a Hall of Famer as a worker. I mean, there haven't been very many better than this. So those are the Japanese connections, just very quickly. Two Mexican inductions. Místico, who also wrestled as Caristico. He was the Sin Cara in WWE, but his original run as Místico, a legendary run as a main event guy in CMLL when that company was red hot. And then Los Villanos. I mean, come on, one of the great heel families in Japanese wrestling history. Villano Tercera, by the way, against Atlantis at I believe that was one of the either the Anniversario show or the El Santo Memorial show. Those are their two biggest shows of the year in CMLL. Mask versus Mask, Villano Tercera and Atlantis, one of the greats, one of the most emotional matches you'll ever see. So they absolutely deserve it. But what you have a Hall of Fame vote, Jeremy? Can you talk us through a little bit?
The elephant in the room.
Some of our people. Yeah. Well, no, because you have an insight as to how some of this stuff works, and I'm also curious to see who was on your ballot. We had a heavy Japanese presence in this. What did you think?
The choices did not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. I went back and forth about who I was going to pick. I spoke to about 3 people outside of myself to get insight about what they thought about some of this stuff. And so I did pick 5 people or 5 acts in Japan. I'm not going to go through my full ballot because it's irrelevant, but we're going to talk about the Japanese aspect. Yoshiaki Fujiwara.
Okay.
I chose Tomohiro Ishii.
Okay.
I chose Tetsuya Naito. I chose Akira Taue and Toshiaki Kawada. And then the last one, I did this with 2 tag teams, and I chose them on one metric alone, and it was Manami Toyota and Toshio Yamada. And they and Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood are the only 2 acts that have ever won a Wrestling Newsletter Match of the Year award that are not in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame.
There you go.
And so I thought that was an automatic argument to get them in there because of what a prestigious award that is. That is an argument in and of its own metric. I felt Ibushi was going to get in regardless of whether I voted for him or not. So I didn't vote for him. I threw that one to Ishii, and I felt pretty good about that ballot. So congratulations to all the entrants. I probably will keep my ballot to myself because I've seen how people react to it online, and I do not like it.
Yeah,
I don't blame you. I do not enjoy the discourse, but if you are willing to watch this video and find what I picked More power to you. Thanks for watching.
I'm looking over here because I just wanted to see how Ishii did. He got about, what was it, 38% of the vote or something like that. So it was short, but solid showing for Ishii. Who are some other people here that are associated with New Japan that I'm looking for? You mentioned Steamboat and Youngblood. They also fell a little bit short, 29%. Toyota and Yamada, 22%.
Clearly,
Hayabusa,
my metric doesn't apply to anybody else.
Well, no, I thought Hayabusa might do better than he did, but he didn't get a whole ton of votes there. Hayabusa was 23% of the vote, and this can change year to year. Sometimes people are just really focused on getting one. But there was a big logjam in Mexico a few years ago that finally cleared out, where there were so many good candidates that the votes were spread out. Nobody was getting in because the votes had kind of spread amongst a whole group of them, and no one was getting that 60% threshold. It took like one to just sneak over the top, and then all of a sudden everybody was just like, okay, he's in, therefore that guy's in. So I think some of the dam is going to break. Like Argentina Rock on Miguel Perez, who the biggest drawing tag team in New York during a boom period in the 50s, they could get in. But as far as Japanese now next year, there are a couple of people with Japanese connections in there. The Young Bucks will be on the ballot next year. And of course,
that could be a big shift. Like there's a lot of people. It's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing.
That's going to be a thing. They're going to get in now. Whether they, I mean, the Young Bucks are going to be. The Young Bucks will be in the Wrestler Observer Hall of Fame, whether they get voted for or not. Okay, like there's just no question. But I think they are going to get a lot of votes. I mean, they've. Yeah, they're going to get a lot of votes. And now the beauty pair is another one. This is a women's tag team, Jackie Sato and Machi Fumiaki. And I think a lot of people don't know a lot about the beauty pair these days. The beauty pair were a monster babyface team in one of the early booms of All Japan Women when they had a TV show on weekends. I believe it was at noon, but it was like midday.
Okay.
The following these people had among teenage girls is at pop idol levels, and I think they might have even had hit singles too. I mean, it was during that idol time that we kind of see played out in Cosmic Angels and Stardom, where they sing, they dance, they wrestle, the whole thing. But Jackie Sato and Machi Fumiaki were enormous stars for that group and put All Japan Women on the map, all of which leads to Lioness Asuka and Chigusa Nagayo, who are the Crush Gals, the Jumping Bomb Angels, like Bull Nakano and Dump Matsumoto, moving all the way through to the Stardom years. And I just skipped a ton of very deserving women to be mentioned, but we don't have all day. But it's fair to say that most of the Japanese female wrestlers we know and love and respect and appreciate may never have had their careers if Sato and Fumiaki hadn't had theirs. So monster influential tag team there, the beauty pair. And like I said, the others, John Moxley and Seth Rollins. That'll be a fun argument. So, I mean, just pull up a lawn chair and a cooler of beer for those next year. But that's what we're looking at. I
was going to jump back to a previous point. Do you think, and we don't have to spend too much time on this, but do you think that the Ospreay endorsement of Hayabusa will do anything for his chances in the future?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I think that the timing of it would be wrong for that because he kind of did it after a lot of people had voted already or had filled out their ballots at least, or maybe
if he had done it 2 months earlier, it would have been fascinating.
Yeah, I really would have.
The Hayabusa. But
I personally don't think Hayabusa is a main event guy. Or main event. He's a main event guy. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame guy.
I felt the way that he inspired a lot of people, and his style created something that is made the sport much more magnificent now. But is that the argument to get him in? I'm not sure. Was it the argument for me to vote for him? It was not. Mm-hmm. Maybe in the future. Yeah. But right now I'm kind of in that. I did not vote for him. And I don't feel bad that I didn't vote for him. And the Ospreay endorsement did not change my mind. But I would totally understand if it changed the mind of people and a shift upwards, positive regression happened.
It's going to be fascinating to see what tag teams get in, and if some of those teams, like the one you voted for there, Toyota and Yamada, do better. Again, it's going to take something to break the logjam. Right now, there are a lot of excellent tag teams that are getting some votes, but not 60% of them. Because of that logjam, there are just so many to vote for that the votes get spread out. I think
logjam's going to keep happening with the reveal of new talent every year. But that, you know what I mean? Like the generational talent that are coming up soon versus what's going to be available is going to be problematic, because you only have 18 picks among your entire ballot, and it's just going to get tougher. So
it is. And also, I mean, we still have like British Bulldogs, Heart Foundation, fabulous ones. Steiner's, Youngblood, and the Briscoes. And I don't just mean the ROH Briscoes. I mean Jack and Jerry Briscoe. I mean, there are so many great tag teams right now.
One of my closest friends gave me an unsolicited demand about the Steiners being on my ballot. I'm like, really? Really?
It's a tough call, because boy, they had and they have held the IWGP Tag Team Championship. Yeah. So it belongs on this show. Briefly, we'll go down this rabbit hole for a second. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because you could make the argument that they weren't a team for all that long before they split off, but you could also make they were the most exciting team in the world when they were.
Yeah.
So this is all, it's the Sergeant Slaughter argument, isn't it? Because Slaughter was incredibly influential and a huge deal. Junkyard Dog as well, incredibly influential and a huge deal for a few years. And then, it's
the mainstream presence argument. Like the penetration into the mainstream, does that dictate a higher metric rather than money making or viability long term?
So, or a 2-year run, when Slaughter had the run in New York, and then the Iron Sheik feud and the Pat Patterson feud in WWF, and then he had the feud with Steamboat and Youngblood for Crockett in the Mid Atlantic area. All of that feels very Hall of Famey. And then, there were some tough Sergeant Slaughter matches to watch, weren't there? And God knows Junkyard Dog was one of the biggest baby faces that ever frickin' lived in New Orleans, and during that run. But then once he got heavy and once he got lazy, he got really lazy and really hard to watch. So it's all of that, and that's why this Hall of Fame thing, it's an art. It's such a challenge,
because everybody's value is subjective. It's so subjective.
And it'll be fascinating to see how that goes. So anyway, we will continue to cover that as Japanese names go up and down in the voting, go on and off the ballot.
My first year as a voter, and it was a learning experience. And I think I'll definitely do things a little differently next time.
It's more stressful than you think, isn't it, picking these?
I did not enjoy it. It was an honor, but I did not enjoy it.
Yeah, it would be an honor. I know it's a mixed bag. Like, I've always wanted to vote in this thing, and then after a while, sometimes I look at it and go, "Whoo, glad I don't have to choose this year."
Yeah. Somebody's gonna punch me in a lobby somewhere.
Hopefully, it's somebody rich you can sue.
Oh, not my lobby.
Okay, so with all this going on, there's a show tomorrow, Jeremy, and we barely scratched the surface of it.
57 minutes in, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So obviously we're gonna move along fairly quickly through this, but we were gonna go through some of the key matches that we saw on the way to the finals for the World Tag League and Super Junior Tag League. Then we're gonna take a look at the full card for tomorrow. We won't dissect everything match by match. Don't worry. We don't want to be here that long either, let alone you guys out there watching. But we did want to touch on some things because there was some interesting stuff in those last few days, Jeremy. So let's start with the Junior Tag League, and there were some key matches that decided things. We went into those final 2 days with 6 teams in contention. It's a classic have and have not tournament. There were really about 5 teams, I guess, really, that were still in it. So one of the big matches on the 7th in Nagasaki was Leo Rush and Yo against Taguchi and Clark Connors. And that was the one where you just think, well, this could be an upset special, but no, they really are going, and we found out, going all the way with Yo and Leo Rush here. They did some shenanigans on this one. This match was mostly good, and I have been crapping on Taguchi and Connors this whole tournament, but this match was pretty good until they got into the whole beer thing. But Leo Rush had fun with it. he did the beer toast with Taguchi, and then as Taguchi was drinking the beer, he kicked him in the stomach and gave him a Stone Cold Stunner, very Steve Austin-esque kind of a frivolity on that. But and then he did the same thing to Clark Connors afterwards, where he like did the cheers, and we've seen this a million times with Triple H and with 1,000 other people. He just did it to everybody in the world in Dallas last year, where he does the toast, drink beer. Why anyone believes they're not going to get kicked in the stomach and stunned is beyond us. He does it to Clark Connors afterwards. So this was a clear signal. If they were going to get tripped up, I thought this was going to be it. When they won this match, I really thought, oh, they are going to put them in the finals. Like, they really believe in this team, Yo and Lio Rush.
Yeah, this was the first real indication to me that Bushi and Titan weren't going forward in this. Like, you and I were feeling pretty strongly that they might go right back to Bushi and Titan, really just kind of separating them from the field and proving that they were the ones worthy to get another title shot. But that was not what happened. And they are kind of stepping away from that, maybe a little bit more a Fantastic Mania for them in the future. So we ended up with my favorite new team name, Leo.
Leo.
And that actually led to one of my favorite matches.
Yes, sir.
Leo and the Bushi match. And when they won this match, I was just like, oh. So I have gone back, and I've mentioned this a couple times. I have a long simmering prediction that Leo is going to join the United Empire based off of the event of the first night of the tag action, which was Lio Rush and Yo versus Catch 2x2, which was the first match and could potentially be the final match of the tournament this year, which would put a fun bow on things the way that they like to do symmetry. But what do you think? Do you think that it's going to end up being Yo and Leo, or do you think it's going to be? What do you think?
I do think they're going to end up winning the tournament. And I think they're going to beat Ace Austin and Chris Bay for a couple of reasons. Ace Austin and Chris Bay is the other one that went in to the finals. They actually had a stumble in Nagasaki in a really good match against Alex Zane and Al Lindemann. And that's the match that allowed everybody to go into the final day still in contention. And then Alex Zane and Lindemann were upset by Suzuki-Gun, Kanemaru, and Doki. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because it's
my prediction paid off. I just remembered.
This is really good booking by Geto. It's just so good by Geto. So he has Alex Zane and El Lindemann beat Ace Austin and Chris Bay to even things up and send everybody in the last day with all these teams in contention. Last day of the tournament, then, they had a couple of the matches, House of Torture against Taguchi and Connors. Here are my notes on that one, by the way. Felt like forever, and then just the word shit was written. Was written in my notepad. Anyway, then they had Suzuki-Gun against Kanemaru and Doki. They defeated Zane and Lindemann. Kind of an upset special, but Kanemaru and Doki were put in that position because they scored the big upset on TJP and Francesco Akira. Now, they are the junior tag team champions. We've talked about it before. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the champions to win the tournament. It's all about finding contenders for them. So someone had to trip them up. Doki and Kanemaru trip them up, which means that TJP and Francesco Akira will probably be giving them a title shot, which TJP and Akira will probably win. But because it's New Japan and because they don't bury their contenders, and go figure, their title matches mean something. Pay attention, WWE. I know you're not. But after that, Doki and Kanemaru go on a run so that they, lo and behold, look strong when they challenge for the titles. That puts them in perfect position to be the team that trips up Zane and Lindemann on the last day. So Zane and Lindemann get the big win over Austin and Bay, but then fall short to the team that will be getting eventually a title shot. I just thought that was really good booking. And that Zane and Lindemann weren't going to win this thing. Lindemann is from Glate, which is a different promotion. Zane is taken very seriously, clearly, as far as how many points they scored in this thing. They think a lot of him, but it wasn't their time. And so there was a nice way to get them out of the way, which led to the last two matches of the night. and one of your favorites right here, because this match really did the match you mentioned earlier there, the Rush and Yo against Bushi and Titan, really delivered. And then we had Bullet Club against United Empire. So anyway, I'm going on and on, but I was just really impressed with the way Geto got everybody there, and then how he intelligently separated them out so that we have now a contender for the championship, champions, and then two teams going into this final, all of whom look strong. And then Alex Zane and Lindemann aren't a part of any of that, yet they are protected and still look good. And that's pretty challenging, and he did a good job.
I will say, even though it didn't cost Austin and Bay their berth in the Super Junior Tag League finals, there is some moral victory to Zane getting the win over his former friend Austin after the Best of the Super Juniors, where he was betrayed by Austin, and then they had the feud where Austin got the best of him. So I feel like that closes the book on that little sub chapter of story, and everyone can kind of move on to bigger and better things until they want to go back to it. But they kind of gave each other their receipts for each other, so that story for now is closed. I feel pretty good about the fact that they told one part of the story in one Super Junior tournament. They progressed it in this one, and then maybe next year we'll pick it all back up again when we have the Best of the Super Juniors. And I fully expect all of these guys to be back in there when it happens.
So my prediction is that Austin and Bay, because they are Impact guys, are very good, and they've looked terrific in this tournament. I feel like they're going to be the ones that lose in the finals to Yo and Lio Rush, which sets up that babyface heel dynamic with TJP and Francesco Akira. So with that in mind, I do think that we are going to see Rush, and I'm not convinced he's joining UE quite yet. I think there might even be a title run in there. I think, again, we mentioned it, that this is a perfect spot for Lio Rush. His size is not a detriment in New Japan like it is everywhere else. I think he's in with the right guys. If you think about it, if Lio Rush has his head straight and really wants to be part of this, Lio Rush against Titan, Lio Rush against Hiromu Takahashi, Lio Rush against Taiji Ishimori, yes, yes, and yes, please, please, please. Even so, there's a lot of things. Yo is an underrated tag team wrestler. He's fabulous. And Lio could also give him a bit of that edge that Yo has been missing. This could be healthy for everyone. So I like this team. Again, it would go into Wrestle Kingdom against TJP and Akira. I wouldn't mind if Yo and Rush won this thing and let that be the rivalry. And then you still have Bushi and Titan around. You'll still have Suzuki-Gun. There's a lot of good teams around. So I think you can go, if everybody's on the same page, I think Yo and Lio Rush could be a really good babyface team that they could use.
Yeah, I feel strongly that there's a lot of potential with the Lio, and I feel like a lot of potential with the Yo. I think Catch 2x2 would be best served remaining the champions for the foreseeable future through Wrestle Kingdom. So I'm just there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of different talent. Let's just keep it rolling and see what we got next.
It's important to note you could even do a back and forth because, again, 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, right? So you could always just do that. So that's a possibility. So then we were going in. So let's go over this real quick here. So it's Ace Austin and Chris Bay, 14 points. Yo and Lio Rush finished with 14 as well. They'll face off tomorrow. TJP and Akira, Alex Zane and El Lindemann, Bushi and Titan, the other contenders, they finished at 12. Kanemaru and Doki, off to a rough start, but they came on strong at the end with 8. And then you had the also rans there at the bottom. But there's one also ran I wanted to mention that really sticks out. Kevin Knight looked terrific this whole tournament and was really exciting. Didn't have the results because, someone's got to lose these matches. It's just the way it is. And he did something in each match that really drew your attention. I feel like we're going to see more Kevin Knight in the future and that he wasn't just cannon fodder in this tournament. I think he's going to end up back in a more prominent spot someday in the future.
Yeah, he definitely, I like to say, leveled up, and that's a good way of putting it. I don't think anyone in this tournament disappointed. Maybe Clark Connors and Taguchi, but there were still glimmers of them, like they were there to put on a show rather than show us what you got.
Yeah, they did not.
It wasn't the greatest tournament in the world. But I've watched a lot of wrestling between WWE AEW and New Japan. The work rate and the storytelling in this was blowing everything else away. Even if it wasn't A+, it was above heads and shoulders everything else I've been watching.
Yeah, Connor's running around drinking beer with his pants down. It's going to take a while for me to take that guy as seriously as I had been. And he came out of Super Juniors with me taking him very seriously, and this was a step back for him.
No.
Yes, it was.
I understand.
Anyway, we also had a heavyweight tag team tournament that was pretty darn good too. I want to mention this. There's a team that finished toward the bottom of the stands there, that Alex Coughlin and Gabriel Kidd. I felt like the first half of this tournament, Jeremy, was about Coughlin. He looks fantastic. He's just cut. He's doing all these feats of strength moves. And then I felt like Kidd kind of caught fire the second half of the tournament with his, and I caught fire is a bit of a pun. This guy just has that kind of a scrappy do, let me at him, all type of attitude to him. And I thought he really shined toward the end of this tournament and did some interesting stuff. So these are guys I think also that we'll see kind of in that Kevin Knight territory. Didn't get a lot of wins, but I think made a bit of a name for themselves. And I think they'll be names that you'll be happy to see back. You think, oh, these guys, he's on this tour. Good. I think they helped themselves.
I did not enjoy that street fight between him and Suzuki-Gun. That match. It wasn't my favorite, but I definitely like the fire, and I know that he's got potential. I think he's going to be a much better heel than he will like a face. I think if anything, like him joining Suzuki-Gun is like probably a strong possibility with the fire he showed against them. And if you want to add somebody to Suzuki-Gun, that could be something else that his announcement could be, all those kind of things. So it wasn't my favorite match, but they were there to lose to a bunch of people and to have the moral victory win. And they did. Gabriel Kidd made it through the tournament, and he had a lot of struggles.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fair.
He, it wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't a guarantee that this guy had the fortitude to make it through this, but he did, and he did a great job. And whether I loved every match performance that he had, I will not sit here and say that he did a bad job. I think he did. I think he stepped up to the challenge.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing about that, there's a move, that they tried this Coughlin. They try to power bomb Kidd onto people, and for match after match after match, so Coughlin would pick up Kidd and try to power bomb Kidd onto their opponent. And the story was people kept moving out of the way of it. Well, they were finally going to hit it in that Suzuki Archer match. And then they missed the move, not because Lance Archer moved. He didn't. He was there ready to take the move. Coughlin just missed. And he powerbombed Kidd like directly to his left. And then so they picked him back up and did it again. And it barely touched Archer. So this move needs to go back to research and development. It just they need to workshop it, whatever the corporate terms are. The move's not ripe yet. It needs to go back. Needs to go back in the incubator for a minute. So there were some hiccups, but this was another tournament that was very well booked by Gato to come down to about 5 teams at the end. And on I'm going to bring this up here in Kochi. Yeah, Kochi on the 9th. We had TMDK, the Mighty Don't Kneel, Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste defeating Aussie Open. Aussie Open have been having their way with this tournament early on in it. But this was Team DMDK, who were kind of flying under the radar a little bit, just picking up wins, but not at the top. And at the end, they were right in it. We were right in it to the very end. Hell of a match with Aussie Open there, and very, very good stuff. And Mighty O'Neill got the big win there just to tighten things up. And in the main event that night, LIJ, Naito and Sonata defeated Suzuki-Gun in a match that probably Suzuki stumbled while trying to take the Destino, and the whole thing didn't turn out that well. But it was
cringeworthy.
That one was cringeworthy. The rest of the match was fairly good. But what it did set up was a whole slew of tag teams in it to the very end again. And there were 4 teams mathematically in it in Himeji and Ehime on the 11th in Himeji. And first of all, we saw that street fight that you mentioned. United Empire beat Tanahashi and Yano, who really weren't a factor in this at all. And Tanahashi was having he has good knee days and bad knee days, and that was a bad one. He could barely run. Then we had House of Torture. Here was the upset, wasn't it? You could almost see it. And as soon as I saw it on the card, I was like, nuts.
Son of a.
House of Torture, my pick, LIJ, Naito and Sonata facing the House of Torture on the last day of the tournament. I was like, oh, God. Why didn't I see this coming? Aussie Open, nice touch. Aussie Open, who were in the clubhouse. They had the bye because you remember Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale.
That was great.
Out of the tournament, sat ringside in their suits and just were going to just observe the whole thing. Did not interfere. UE
already
doesn't interfere.
In. Just waiting. Just to see who their opponent was.
Yeah. The thing about this match, Jeremy, is the match doesn't really start until there's the ref bump when it's Evil and Yujiro. So you're just sitting there, and they can do anything they want. They can do anything spectacular. Those Yujiro, so they weren't. It was just a matter of waiting for that inevitable ref bump, which is so repetitive and it's so heavily patterned. But it finally came, and there came Dick Togo, and there came Sho, and there were all these machinations of. They tried to make it interesting with, trying to get the cane away from Yujiro, and Sonata looks like he's going to overcome it, and he stops Yujiro from giving him the low blow, and he's about to nail Yujiro, but then Evil gives him the low blow, and then in the end, of course, they just hit everybody with weapons. The referee, who's not actually particularly unconscious and never bothers to disqualify or even bother to turn his back all the time, counts the pinfall, and that eliminated Naito and Sonata, which I was disappointed in, and sets up a thing like, what are these guys going to do at Wrestle Kingdom? But it took them out of the tag team tournament. Any thoughts on this match before I move ahead? Like, what were you thinking during this? Did you have the same bad feeling I did?
It was immediately like, oh, they're going to challenge for the trios. Like, they're going to challenge House of Torture.
Somebody's going to challenge. Jeremy's going to make sure someone challenges for these damn trios.
Somebody better challenge Evil, because if Evil has a match for those titles, it better be something like, because there's a lot of talent that should be on this show that right now doesn't have a match.
Right.
And so I'm trying to figure out, like, what applesauce are you going to make out of these bad apples right now? Because you got to do something with this. Like, there was a suggestion by Alvarez that maybe they might do a trade. Tanahashi and Naito go to Seattle for AEW in return for the other talent. And you know what? They were right. Like, Naito, you don't do that. You could do that with Tanahashi at this point if he wasn't on a Wrestle Kingdom. But like, a Rambo ain't it. I could. If you wanted to just throw Naito and Sonata into the tag finals after they determine a winner, and then they're like, yeah, we just want to be in there too, and then Aussie Open's like, we'll take you all on. It doesn't matter. It's like they wanted to do that. I would honestly just be like, fine, great. Let's just get this going, because they already have me watching. They already got me in there. I don't want to hear people complaining about Naito's not on the card or Suzuki's not on the card in a place of you know what I mean? Like, all these things that people will complain about. Wrestle Kingdom isn't what it used to be or anything like that. You're right. It's not. There's a women's match on the card this time. So it's just, I want to see him on the card because I don't want to hear the frustration that he's not on the card.
From me, by the way, that was directed to me totally.
No, actually it wasn't.
but Naito, Sonata, Ishii, all with nothing to do with Kingdom. It's just very odd. And I don't trust it. I feel like there's something coming. I just don't know what the hell it is. And usually I have an idea, doggone. So it's got me flummoxed. I'm bamboozled.
They can't be in a Rambo. They cannot be in
No, I don't want to. Well, Ishii has been in the Rambo before. That's the sad part. He's done it.
Either just don't put him on there. Like, there's you know what I mean? Like, just you don't have to. You don't have to do that to our guy, like future Hall of Famer Ishii.
It could be as simple as Naito challenges the winner of Jay White and Okada for Yokohama. It could be.
Yeah, you could just show up at the very end and do that.
You could just show up at the end. Yeah, no, don't put his knees through it. They're going to have to have something from Yokohama off of that. So, anyway, and then that show ended with Chaos, which was Goto and Yoshihashi. You've been having a really good tournament, strong matches all the way through. They defeated Nichols and Hayes. So Nichols and Hayes kind of filled that Zane Lindemann role of the team that scored the big upset to get into the final day, still in contention, but not quite. And hell of a good match. TMDK had a near fall on Goto with a cutter off the shoulder. This was the tour of the cutter, Jeremy. I don't know if you noticed how many teams had some version of a double team cutter for their finisher. It's
a devastating move that will also kill your back.
but it's definitely in vogue right now. No question about that. It's haven't seen this since the great DDT scare of the 1990s when everybody was doing that. They had a neat thing they did though, where they went for TMDK, went for the cutter where I believe it's Nichols has the guy up on his shoulder and Haste climbs up. And instead, Goto kind of came out the back door and slid down his back and shoved him just as Haste jumped. And Haste ended up basically shoving his opponent into the DDT off the top. It looked right. I'm not doing it justice. It was a really smooth and actually
they've had a great tournament.
Spot. Yeah. And anyway, Nichols managed to fight off the double team GTR for a while from Bishamon, the team name of Goto and Yoshihashi, which is being emphasized this year, and got the win. So Goto and Yoshihashi were the team that moved on to face Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis in the finals tomorrow, and much deserved. I think they did a good job with Haste and Nichols. I think they've helped themselves in this tournament, and I enjoyed it. It was good. That last show was pretty solid, I thought.
They ended on a high note. All the matches and the finale, there were some surprises. There were choices made. So I'm going to ask you, given all that you've seen this year, who you got?
Okay. Who do I have in the tag team tournament finals?
In this match right here.
In this match right there. So this one I'm really torn on. If this were one of those fantasy football things where you had to make your choice and then rank them, like where you get more points for the ones you're more confident on, this one would be pretty low on the list. I feel really good about Yo and Lio Rush. Feel less good about this one. I'm of two minds. Again, they could go for the safety blanket, which is to have your native stars, everybody knows Goto, everybody knows Yoshihashi, to face FTR on the 4th. Aussie Open and FTR just had a really great match at Royal Quest 2. A great match. One of the best tag team matches the entire year. It has to be a little bit tempting to do that one again, knowing that you're going to get another classic match at Wrestle Kingdom. And I'm leaning toward Fletcher and Davis here, just because I don't think that Goto and Yoshihashi won it last year. Then they won the tag team titles at Wrestle Kingdom. It's a little bit of the same story 2 years in a row, which isn't impossible or unheard of. But I feel like they saw that match at Royal Quest and maybe think the Japanese fans would like that. Let's see that one again. And I think it's possible. And you can always have Goto and Yoshi. Someone's going to have to face them in Yokohama, whoever wins. But I'm leaning 65% toward Aussie Open in this one. Where are you?
I think I'm with you. Like my head says Yoshihashi Goto for a lot of logical reasons, but then I'm tempered by they don't have plans for half of the traditional New Japan roster. So like, what does it matter at this point? So if they want to go with the banger match of the hot stable that they just elevated to the top level within their own stable, like, you could do that and then just leave it be there and just give them their next chance to chase. Everything in my body is telling me that it's not going to end up a traditional tag match at Wrestle Kingdom. There's going to be shenanigans and there's going to be multiple tag teams in that match. I don't know how, I don't know who, but there's just the caliber of tag team championship wrestling that could be fighting for this title. I don't know. Like, I feel like something about it. If they're going to go one-to-one, Aussie Open versus FTR, I would love to see that match. If it were FTR versus Bishamon, doesn't get me quite the same way. Doesn't excite me quite the same way. But I can't also say that Goto and Yoshihashi haven't just wrestled out of their minds for the last 18 months. And if they want to do a tag match with them, with FTR, which I believe is a fresh tag match, let's do it. It's like, I'm not booking this, but I'm definitely enjoying the ride. So I would agree with you that what you said, 65% Aussie Open, 35% Yoshihashi Goto. I think those odds are right.
Okay. And that brings us to something else, which that would give us a double dose of Gideon Gray, because he would have both of his teams in the final. So as always, as you can see on the screen right there, going to take a moment to appreciate the fine work of Gideon Gray, who's doing really well with his ring announcements. I can't wait to see the suit. That's really what I'm here for. I want to see what he's wearing for Wrestle Kingdom. I think that'll be a highlight too. So now, anyway, that's kind of just being kind of silly.
I'm looking for the Gideon Gray versus Don Callis face-off.
Oh, well, we haven't heard Don was, Chris Charlton and Kevin Kelly, I think, are the best team in the world as far as like telling the story of the match and the stories that are being played out in the ring. I think they are the absolute best in the business. At the same time, boy, I really like Don Callis on New Japan stuff. It really suited him well. I do kind of miss the guy.
When he's motivated, that dude is on fire.
Yeah, he's really good. So, all right. So that brings us to the show tomorrow morning, and we'll run down the card. We won't analyze every match, but it's El Lindemann and Alex Zane getting a pat on the back match against Ryohei Oiwa and Kosuke Fujita. Of course, Kosei Fujita. There's no K. There's only one K in Kosei Fujita. So, I mean, Young Lions match. That'll be a congratulations win for Lindemann and Zane there. Kushida and Kevin Knight against Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste. That's an interesting little matchup, isn't it? A heavyweight team against a junior team. Give Kevin Knight a chance to do a rather spectacular dropkick, I'm sure, as he always does. Tiger Mask, Robbie Eagles, Alex Coughlin, Gabriel Kidd versus Great O'Khan, Aaron Henare, TJP, and Francesco Akira. So here you have the Hantai / Chaos group against UE, and that next one is Suzuki, Lance Archer, Kanemaru, and Doki against Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, Sho, and Dick Togo. I don't like Dick Togo's chances there, Jeremy. So you're getting a lot of these sort of preview tags as we build toward the big matches on this show. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toru Yano, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Clark Connors against LIJ, basically Naito, Sonata, Bushi, and Titan. The next one's a little more intriguing. 6-man tag, Kazuchika Okada, Tama Tonga, Master Wato against Jay White, Taiji Ishimori, and Geto. And no points for figuring out who's going to take the fall in this match, Jeremy, whatsoever. But I am curious to see some of the interactions between Okada and White. Most of the time when there's a big preview tag before Wrestle Kingdom, there's a bit of a plot point, a little hint of maybe a move someone might go for or bring out. A lot of times there's a little bit of a hint, something to look out for at Kingdom. So I'll be watching that one closely. And of course, Wato and Ishimori, part of a preview for that junior tag thing. Any thoughts on this undercard before we get to the big three?
Who was the third person in that Bullet Club trio?
Geto, Jay White, and Ishimori.
I mean, Wato pinning Geto would make a lot of sense, but I also think that Wato pinning Ishimori again with his crucifix like suplex pin just one more time to get in Ishimori's head before the tag, like I got your number kind of thing would be fun, because he could still do that and then have that moment broken up by somebody else in the 4-way and then go in a different direction. But the leaving Jay White, Okada, and Tama Tonga generally out of the finish seems like the play for me.
Yeah. I don't think there's any reason to have any one of those guys laying down or anything else. So after that, the long-awaited Never Openweight Championship, Karl Anderson against Hikuleo. Again, I think I agree with you. I think that the fact that he's going to be at Wrestle Kingdom means that Karl Anderson retains here, and I think you agree with that also, right? You mentioned earlier, they kind of gave away the finish of this one. I hope that Hikuleo has a good outing, because I do believe in him. I think he can really be something in New Japan, and this is going to be his biggest match to date.
Yeah, I'm going to politely reserve judgment until I see what they happen, because I don't think I'm going to be kind about anything, because I've repeated ad nauseum how I felt about it. So I hope that I am pleasantly surprised with this match, but at this point, it would take a lot to pleasantly surprise me.
Junior Tag League Finals, Lio Rush and Yo against Ace Austin and Chris Bay. We talked about that. We feel like that's a babyface win for Rush and Yo, perhaps. Most likely, Lio. And the World Tag League Finals, Hiroki Goto, Yoshihashi against Aussie Open. we're much less confident in this one, but we know it's going to be a good match because they've been having some really good matches all through that tournament. Both teams real strong. So a lot to look forward to there. That's coming up tomorrow morning. So, should be an interesting show. And then after that, there's a little bit of downtime for the New Japan roster before they get to Road to the Tokyo Dome. That doesn't start until December 22nd. So a little bit of time off for the gang after this one.
Yeah, so we might get the Doki Kanemaru tag match somewhere in there, kind of headlining.
Feels
kind
like
of a little thing here or there. There's going to be a lot of noise rather than news because it's all the road to the Wrestle Kingdom on the 4th. And so we're both looking forward to it. We're going to have a lot of coverage personally on our end that we are planning. We're not quite ready to reveal, but we will have plenty of previews of Wrestle Kingdom as we navigate these New Japan road shows. So I just wanted to mention that briefly while we were out there. But yeah, I'm definitely kind of like de-shifting my gears on New Japan prior to Wrestle Kingdom because it feels like everything is just Wrestle Kingdom. There's not a whole lot of energy going to be expounded on a lot of these other shows that require a whole lot of looking into the tea leaves, if you will. So I'm excited because tomorrow just feels like the last big show before Wrestle Kingdom. We could have a surprise appearance here or there. Like there are people that could show up that we're not planning. We could be talking about the same kind of video with Kenny Omega that happened at the historic show. So there's definitely going to be some news coming out of this show, but just how much big news, that's the one that I'm really kind of like, what am I going to wake up to with the headlines being tomorrow?
It's been fascinating. You think back a month ago, November 13th is just before historic crossover, not long before it. At that point, the only thing we really knew about Wrestle Kingdom is that we were going to have an IWGP Women's Championship match. We knew about the TV title match, and we knew Jay White against Okada. Since then, we have added Will Ospreay against Kenny Omega, a probable appearance from Mercedes Varnado, a WWE contracted talent on the show in Karl Anderson. We know we're going to get FTR in against one of these tag teams, and it's just really become a dynamic, interesting card filled with people from all different promotions. I just couldn't be. I really have the excitement toward Wrestle Kingdom this year has really picked up. This feels like it's not just going to be a good show. It feels like it's going to be an important one.
Could be the best birthday ever.
You've been my best birthday ever. I love it every year. I'm hoping. Nothing much beats it because I only give myself kettle chips 2 times a year, or else I will eat all of them. And opening day of baseball and on Wrestle Kingdom. So I'm going to be very excited with my bag of kettle chips sitting and watching this one. Nothing much beats that. So I'm pretty fired up. But no, it should be a very important card, Jeremy. Not just a good one, and it will be a good one. Yes. But this could have repercussions. It's going to tell us a lot about the future in this, this industry, really.
It very much will. I felt like WWE had an opportunity to define the year with their new day show, like the day one show. But this Wrestle Kingdom 100% will create the tempo and vibe for 2023. Like the level of cooperation, what we saw in 2022 was planning as you're like creating routes. But now that they've, established some links here or there, like doing these cross-promotional shows should theoretically be easier. And they should theoretically be able to be incorporating each other into stories a little more seamlessly, having learned lessons about what has worked and what is like too heavy-handed with cross-promotional stuff. So I feel like with all the different promotions that are involved and how they're involved and the ways that they are participating with each other, it's really gonna, by the end of 2023, if we're talking about New Japan and WWE having a really strong relationship and AEW and New Japan having a fraying relationship, like, would that shock you? I mean, after the last 3 months, it wouldn't shock me as much as it was if I'd heard that 3 months ago. So everything's changing and it's going to be a super exciting card. The politics behind it are incredibly fascinating. And I know that there are things that you and I both know that we can't talk about here, but man, it's just wild stuff sometimes. The weird behind the scenes stuff that doesn't matter, but clearly matters more than anyone could possibly imagine when it comes to big stuff and small stuff being important.
Well, with that in mind, we will be back next week to talk more about the Tag League and Super Junior Tag League finals. Look forward to Wrestle Kingdom. I'm sure there's going to be more news coming out between now and then that we'll go over. So with that in mind, make sure you check out the other shows here on the Fight Game Media Network, and both on the YouTube feed, the Patreon. Check out the podcast feed. There's just something for everybody, and it'll help you keep track of this incredibly busy world of combat sports, pro wrestling, boxing, all of it. You can get all the information you need from it. So with that in mind, you see our socials right there on the screen. Anything else you want to add, Jeremy, before we wrap this one up?
You might see a little bit more on me on the YouTube in the near future, but I don't know when and where. But if you see me popping up, I'll be plugging this show.
And I'm going to be doing the wrap this weekend. I am doing a part of the year end awards, so I will be on with Keela and with Scott talking WWE again, and I've been going through all the shows there and going to get my WWE back on, so it'll be fun to talk the Fed with them. So that's coming up this
Can't
coming
stop,
week.
won't stop, buddy.
It'll be a good time. So with that in mind, for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. Thank you very much for watching Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll be back with more very soon.